Welcome to another episode, and I'm with my friends of High Wire Distilling, Scott and Ann, founders, chefs, distiller, marketer, everything.
The Spirit Box.
No, actually, you were gonna be a brewer too. You are a brewer.
Home brewer, yeah, for sure. But yeah, we looked at it as a profession. Never happened though.
Yeah.
Distilling.
Well, you took it a notch. Well, welcome to the show, and I'm very excited to try with you guys all of your expressions. Well, not all of them, but a lot of them. I don't know how I'm gonna stumble out my way out of here, but
It's all good. We're good. We can go with it.
I would love to know a little bit about you guys, your story.
You want to go?
Sure. So we came out of the natural and organic products industry. So we had a bakery before this that Scott started in his garage. Back in the 90s, Scott is a serial entrepreneur. So before that, there's a restaurant, there's a coffee roasting company, there is a Ben & Jerry's distribution company, and there is a pie business that helped pay his way through college. So a lot of culinary experience there, and I joined the bakery as a marketing person back in the early 2000s. And natural products was really our first love. You know, just it was the dawn of really Whole Foods growth and momentum, and a lot of really great grassroots brands that were getting started and in really scrappy ways. And it was a really dynamic environment to cut your teeth in marketing and entrepreneurship, and that's really what laid the foundation. I think more so than any of the other businesses you had. I think that was the one that really just kind of showed us what was possible.
Of course. And I'm pretty sure all that background that you had helped shape your palate in the sense like what you were expecting from a whiskey itself, a bourbon, gin, whiskey, Amaro.
Yeah. Well, I think too, you know, I was always the common thread when I made pies, for instance, first business in college. I didn't really call it a business. It was just making some money while I was going to college.
And passion.
Right. But at that point, this would have been in the 80s. So everything was coming out of a box made with artificial cream and, corn syrup and things like that. And it was flavoring, so lemon, you got a lemon flavoring. So everything sort of tasted more like,
artificial.
Yeah, candy, kind of flavors, and things were really sweet. Kind of like the cocktail world. You look back at the cocktail world, things were coming out, right? And it was more about size, kind of big piece of pie, as opposed to actual good flavor. So I was like, why aren't they just using lemons or chocolate or cream, butter, things of that nature? And in high school, I didn't realize this. I kind of realize it now. We were just rewatching the Julie and Julia movie about Julia Childs, and I used to be obsessed with Julia Childs and Jacques Pepin, and I watched PBS and watched all those chefs in middle school, high school, and it was more of just kind of watching someone make something was kind of fascinating to me, and it was very otherworldly. I'd never been to France. I'd never been really much out of the state of South Carolina, except for a short stint in Florida. But that flavor and that sort of natural flavor, and why
are we seeking freaking stuff like taffy flavors and you know what I mean?
Right. And now I understand, cost and efficiency and consistency, but the reality is but you lose a lot.
Yeah. No, I've gone into rabbit holes about the whole, in which we're gonna touch in a little bit, but the corn, the yellow corn, how we ended up with all this massive surplus of corn because of subsidizing and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, distilling is very low on the pecking order for use of corn. We're down in the 1 percentile probably or less.
Yeah.
So guess what? It's not made for distilling. It ultimately gets used for distilling, but it's human consumption.
Ethanol, plastics, animal feed. are the top 3 uses of corn. When you get down into corn that's consumed by humans, you're really at less than 5%. That includes high fructose corn syrup.
Yep.
That includes cornstarch. It includes the alcohol beverage industry. It's pretty astounding. And what that tells you is if ethanol and plastics are the first 2, then corn has been bred for efficiency and conversion, not for flavor.
Of course.
And that's really has been fundamental to how we think about and approach ingredients and what we're using. Like Scott said, his background going all the way back to the pie business and up through, roasting coffee, sourcing and roasting coffee, and then sourcing things like chocolate and vanilla for the bakery. Always just paying attention to quality and flavor first, with a consideration to cost. But there's always, when you are buying cheap ingredients, you are giving something up by way of quality, and that, ends up evening itself out.
Yeah,
so.
you have a balance over there that always tells you how much more can I lean into this and how much less, and where can I compromise, where can I not compromise. You have your own moral compass in terms of flavor, not necessarily, we're not gonna get into morality or anything like that, but in a way, yes, but...
Well, and because, the 50s, post-50s through, really when I got into more of the commercial side of, the food business, being in business in food, things were out of a package. Everything was, and so like coffee, I didn't drink coffee growing up. I didn't drink coffee till I was in my 20s. And I remember my great-grandparents, would drink, out of a can, and it was just horrible. I thought it was tasted like not very good. It wasn't bad necessarily, but I was like, why would you drink that, And then it wasn't until the coffee craze kind of happened, and then I was like, oh, wow, there are these other coffees that actually have good flavor, and there's sort of something to learn here. So I got on a plane and flew to Seattle to, the kind of mothership of coffee in the U.S. at that point, and did a deep dive, and then I drank way too much coffee.
Then he was unstoppable. That depends why he's unstoppable.
Yes.
Serial freaking entrepreneur.
It's all coffee.
Fueled by coffee.
Fueled by coffee, yeah.
Nice.
No.
What was the train of thought or the decision behind saving Jimmy Red corn?
That was not the initial mission, was let's go find something that's gone away and try to do the work to revive it. Really, we started out, we were making vodka and gin like a lot of craft distilleries just to pay the bills, and super intimidated by the whiskey program and what that might be, because we would start laying things down and we wouldn't know if they're really good or bad until we got years down the road. So I had been a part of the slow food movement in Greenville, South Carolina, where we lived before we moved to Charleston, and had really started thinking a lot more about rare and heirloom varietals of grain and vegetables and fruits. And so we were just contemplating, like, what can we do with this vehicle that will create some positive change for South Carolina, where we're both from. I grew up an hour from Charleston in a farming family, understood all too well the commodity system and how hard it is for a small family farm to operate within those confines, to have your prices determined on a global scale, not even just a national or regional scale. So we were thinking a lot about how we could do some good in our area and give farmers something that they would be excited about growing, something that would command a higher price. We went to Glenn Roberts, who owns a company called Anson Mills. He is in Columbia, South Carolina, and he is just the foremost expert on heirloom grain. We believe in this country. There are a couple other guys out there who are really just also phenomenal researchers and are doing similar things. But Glenn was right there in Columbia, so we approached him. And he really he wasn't down on the idea, but he was definitely a little apprehensive of what our intentions were, how serious we were about it, and what we intended to do, because he was having a lot of conversations with people, with a lot of breweries, people who were just looking really for a marketing ploy rather than a sustainable path forward. And
The passion.
Put the work in. I mean, really, ultimately, and the only backstory I would add to where Ann is in her story is, I was on a lot, at this point, it would have been like 2012, 13, early 13, while we were building out the distillery. I was in a lot of forums, reading other people that were doing distilling, and they were like, what's your mash bill? What's your mash bill? And they were talking about, well, I'm going to do one more rye than Wild Turkey does, or more wheat than Wheat Maker's Mark. But I continue to see, corn's like 70+% of a bourbon mash bill, and I'm like, why? There was some talk of specific varieties of rye in the Northeast, but no one was talking about the type of corn. And there again, kind of rewinding back to my coffee, wasn't in there again. It was just sort of like a natural way to how my brain and I was like, and I'd gone to Ann before this and said, maybe we ought to source whiskey from a big company while we lay ours down, so we can
which
have
is
some
typical in the business.
cash flow. And she said, no, when will we ever cut those strings? People will know our brand as that, not as what we are trying to do.
We're not MGP.
And so, she said, you'll figure it out. And I was like, and so I was like 3 a.m. staring at the ceiling going, what can we, because ultimately it's a cool story, it looks cool, but flavor has to be there, because people will only buy so much BS after.
Exactly.
It's
like a novelty kind of
it's
gimmick.
like, it's nothing special. I've had it. It tastes just like what, it's like, well, then what, why do it?
You don't want to be that. You don't want to be a gimmick. You don't want to be a novelty. You don't want to be...
And Dave Pickerel, who used to be at Makers, right? Yeah, so Dave, no longer with us, of course, but he worked with us early on.
That's awesome.
And we drilled him. Our space did not have air conditioning yet because we were doing build out, and we sat in our house. We made our first floor bedroom into an office. And we sat there with him, and I still have my spiral notebooks where I was just taking notes feverishly around grain, around just some of the equipment. I mean, we didn't know anything.
Yeah.
And so he was just, while he's here, I'm just yeast, and then he said, you guys have this. You have this understanding of grain already. You brewed beer. You've been in the bakery business. You understand, grain and kind of the impact. You understand distribution from your previous business is different because it's spirits versus food.
Of course.
But similar, kind of delivery system. And then he said, but if there's one thing I can leave you with is you can't out Maker's Mark. So it was sort of like, I knew, we both knew what he meant. Like, if we just go get local corn, it'd probably be number 2 yellow dent corn.
Yeah.
And some wheat and some malted barley, and we use local. That's cool.
Yeah.
But how does that translate to Texas or New York or Oregon?
Uniqueness.
Right. And how does that bring something to the table? And it just didn't feel worth doing. So we were like, okay, we know what he means, but we don't know what that means. So that was sort of stirring.
And we are members of the Southern Foodways Alliance, which is an incredible organization out of Oxford, Mississippi, and they study the American South through the lens of food. And one of the things that they do best is tell incredible stories, and really leaning on that Southern tradition of storytelling and having this rich sense of place. And there were so many things we could do, and it's funny, there was a local paper that called us when we were first starting out, and they got Scott on the phone, and there were a couple other distilleries opening at the same time, and they all pledged, put their flag in the sand on, and we're only going to use local ingredients, and the woman tried to get Scott to say, and we're only going to use local ingredients, and at that point, we just wanted to use the best ingredients.
Exactly.
And Scott refused to say it. And I was like off to the edge of this conversation. And I was like, just say what she
She's
wants
like,
you to
you
say.
should have just, because I would just refuse. I was like, well, if it comes from Australia, if that's what the best is, that's what we're gonna be. We just want, we're not gonna be able to compete on a national level.
Exactly. And I get that part, that if I can source the best here closer to me, like to support my community, I'll do it. But that's one of my commitments. But my other commitment is quality, flavor, uniqueness. So you cannot just promise something that
Right.
No, and we watched the local movement unfold, and we saw the writing on the wall that if local was your only product attribute, the further you distributed your product, the less that was going to matter.
Exactly.
And we wanted a nationally distributed product. So we wanted a nationally distributed product that told a story about our place.
Exactly.
And that is where we, I studied Southern literature in college, and there was this quote from William Faulkner from his Nobel Prize speech. And he basically, was frustrated with his work and wasn't getting that far with it. And he, says, if I could just focus on this postage stamp of soil, I will not live long enough to exhaust it. And it was like, if you just focus on this place and the things that are historic to this place, and if they're good, and if you can really keep digging into that little well, we won't live long enough to exhaust the story of this place, the ingredients of this place. And that was something that that was one of the first quotes that we kind of pinned to the wall and said, this is central to our brand. And I think that we've been so lucky along the way to meet incredible people, especially through Southern Foodways Alliance. And one of them is Julian Van Winkle, who we'll probably refer to later on when it comes to the evolution of Jimmy Red Bourbon. The other is a man named Alan Benton, who is one of the best country ham makers in the entire South. And he quotes his dad all the time, and his quote is, if you play the other man's game, you're going to lose every time.
Yeah, exactly.
So we really just wanted to focus on doing what we knew we could do, meeting Glenn and getting the seeds for Jimmy Red. There wasn't enough even for us to produce a single batch of Jimmy Red Bourbon out of what was in existence in the world. So Glenn called us grain hogs. He said that we just are going to use too much, and he said, and if you want to use it, you're going to have to grow it. There's no supplier out there that's going to grow enough to.
Well, he was used to selling to chefs in 5-pound bags, and here we were. We need 1,000 pounds for one batch, and he's like,
I think you guys started with 2.5 acres, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and that was after he basically said, well, it doesn't exist. You're going to have to grow it. And I was down for that meeting at Clemson at the research farm, and he had gone through a table full of seeds, and then ultimately I pointed to the one in the middle, the red corn, and I said, what's that one? And he said, oh, well, yeah, that's the one you want, Jimmy Red, James Allen Red. And I said, great, let's make some. And he was like, yeah, well, you're going to have to grow it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I don't know how to grow anything. I can't grow a fern.
Yeah.
So that was when Dr. Brian Ward, the PhD that was running that farm, agreed to grow that 2.5 acres. And we went out there every week to watch it sort of sprout and then
child
get to be 10, 12 feet tall and gangly, and the cobs form, and then they start to turn more and more pink and deep red, and sort of variegated, and they end up with that, beautiful sort of.
That starts out yellow, believe it or not.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
When it's in the milking phase, it looks like sweet corn. And then as it develops into the dough phase, it develops a tiny little red patch on the top where the dent ends up. And then that color just blooms across the kernel, and then it hardens up in the field. And when it's dented, you generally know that it's time to harvest it.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and it's ultimately a cousin. A lot of people say Bloody Butcher is very similar. Well, it is a cousin, because ultimately, not to go deep down a rabbit hole, but we've done a ton of research on corn. We've been to Mexico a couple of times.
Of course, because the conic red corn in Mexico is a big deal.
Sure. Well, and the whole thing is that they have something that we have lost, which is they've nurtured that. And guess what?
Yeah.
Some of it's family pride, but flavor, and ultimately what they're going to use it for. So, certain corns they use for this, certain ones they use for that. No animals really eat it. They don't. As a matter of fact, when we were there, they bundled their stalks, and that's what the cows eat. They're not eating the chickens and stuff. They don't get to eat the corn. That's for the people,
Especially the nice corn. Like we do a lot of tortillas that are depends on what you're trying to do with it, or I mean, hominy is part of the. They use it for pozole and stuff like that.
Totally. Well, and this is a flour. This is sort of a flour corn, so it has more of that starchy, and it to me sort of. It's not super corny in flavor.
Yeah.
So it ends up somewhere between a corn and a flour tortilla as flavor, because it's not cobby. It's not. It's got more mineralic, more, sort of
soil, a little bit more of the soil, the character, where it grows.
Right.
Because I was very intrigued about of course, and a lot of people talk about it. Whenever you have 100% corn mash bill, I was very intrigued about the use of enzymes or something to get the fermentation going, because it's hard whenever you don't. But if you have the right starch content and you have, the question answered itself.
Right.
We do use barley enzymes.
Yeah. And you're right. With a yellow corn, it's harder. This one is, if anything, it responds really well. Our fermentations are really strong, and the corn itself has a lot of different flavor characteristics than if we there again used a corn that had been just bred, in a lab.
Yeah.
This has a lot more going on, and because of that starch, a lot of people think there's wheat. And then some people think there's rye, because there's a little spice. And we had it this weekend. We were at an event and we were pouring it, and the guy's like, "Yeah, this one's super spicy." He goes, "This is just corn?" I'm like, "Yeah. Well, yeah."
Which, you know what? I'm kind of getting thirsty.
Yeah.
It's about whiskey o'clock.
Right.
Shall we start tasting, guys?
Yeah.
Sure.
Let's do it.
As you can tell, my bartending skills are a little bit rusty. Okay. Jimmy Red Classic Straight Bourbon. Out of the Carolinas. I don't know what I'm doing, sorry. That was terrible.
This is our flagship.
Flagship, and it comes out at 43.5% ABV, I believe.
42.5.
42. I could just read 47.5. What's wrong?
47.5. Sorry.
Like everybody's wrong.
Everybody's
wrong.
Yeah. I just talk in proof. I don't know. Yes.
Yes,
95
actually, yeah.
proof.
Yeah.
Yes. 95 proof.
95 proof.
47.5.
Jimmy Red Classic coming out at 47.5% ABV, which I like that proof a lot. I can't do 80 proofs very often anymore. It's
No.
no.
Especially this one, it's got so much oil content in the corn that we distill back in, so that creates a little bit of a mask around that proof. So everybody always thinks that it's a lower proof than it actually is.
And also it brings probably a lot of viscosity and texture and body to the.
Yep, all of that.
That's a beautiful nose. Let me just start by saying this is a great nose. I get a little bit of it's cinnamon, nutmeg, rich caramel, a little bit of that. It's like I feel like it has that clove, but very very subtle.
So the color red is associated with cinnamic acid, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's the flavor driver behind cinnamon and other baking spices. So that's definitely become really the hallmark of Jimmy Red's flavor profile across all expressions, is that beautiful baking spice note. And it translates differently depending on how we batch it, depending on the finishes. But that one is the one that we really drive towards.
Because I know we have here. Actually, you know what? Let's have a sip. I'm gonna shut up for a second and tasting notes. First of all, cheers.
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 I really so. I love the baking spices are right there, right in your face in a beautiful way. Very slight tannic components, and the sweetness is just right. It's like a almost like I'm eating a little bit of a pie, but with of course cinnamon and a little bit of apples. It's very, very beautiful. And the end has a big long end.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Dark
still
and
going.
vanilla. Yeah.
And of course the body. It's the spice that you mentioned, very present, and it's hard to believe that this is just corn, 100% corn. That is gorgeous.
We have people say powdered cinnamon donuts.
That I can, yeah. I mean, those are things that
Yeah.
come to mind. And regarding your flagship expression, I know you guys use a 3.5 char on your barrels. You started with 4 years and you keep trying to get, like, you blend and minimum of 4 years, but you keep trying to get more age, and as you of course produce more and time passes by.
Right. Yeah, we're not quite. I mean, we'll be 13 in September.
Yeah.
So, and there again, we didn't start out day one just laying down a ton of whiskey. So we were
And you
learning.
didn't have the corn to do it. So.
Right.
No.
So it took us about 4 years to just sort of get comfortable with the idea of producing enough.
Well, in 4 years to get the agricultural program founded,
Yeah.
to be able to produce all year long, even. We went from 2.5 acres to 7 acres to 13 acres to 24. And it was just these little baby stair steps until we found the right farms who could grow 100 acres.
Exactly.
So
And enough equipment.
yeah, and the proper equipment, proper storage,
course.
all the things that would carry us through a year of production. So
Everything.
that's been foundational to this program. A lot of people are, really just focused on the barrel age, but for us, tack on another 9 months to that because that's, I guess 5 to 6 months,
Absolutely.
because that's how long it takes for the corn to grow. So.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
it's a beautiful
whole
expression,
process,
and
yeah.
the meticulous aspect of it, it's a fascinating thing. How you pick your growers and everything, and the storage, because you gotta go deep down to that level.
Yeah.
If not, that whole purpose that you mentioned since the beginning.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and that was the whole thing. It's like I knew enough about, like with baking, you have, say, 9 ingredients to make, chocolate chip cookies. Well, reality is if I gave each of you guys the recipe and the same ingredients even, or you know what? No, go buy your own ingredients. You're going to have a bunch of different, you're going to have different chocolates, some people are going to be like using margarine or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like ultimately to the process and all of that. So there, even with just 9 simple ingredients, you can create a
Widely different product.
right. And so we, the devil's in the details, and we had somebody join us early on, and they came in. Craft distilling at that point was, more about like try a bunch of different things, and craft beer had definitely gotten to that place where like,
Experimentation.
yeah, right, like
How weird can you get?
right. And I was like, I love a shiny object just as much as the next person, but the thing was, I realized that if we sort of took that Kaizen approach, sort of that deliberate, intentional focus to constantly improve, our energy is best spent focusing on one thing.
Do one thing and do it very well.
Right. And we started off with, the grain, but then yeast. We've played around with a lot of different yeasts. Our yeast, we've made sour mash. We moved to sweet mash.
I know, yeah.
And so we've been with sweet mash pretty much everything here is sweet mash.
You know who got me into sweet mash? Hard Truth.
Oh yeah.
That's what. Whenever I started doing stuff with Hard Truth, it was like the sweet mash and the sweet mash. When I knew about it, but it was not something that. And I was like, no, sweet mash is. You get a lot more. Brian told me that they have a lot more. You have some things that you have to be mindful about in terms of the taste that you have to care about, but the end product is much superior.
Right, yeah, and you have to clean better.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, we and then it came to cooperage, and cooperage and storage, and cooperage was one of those things. We have a lot of winemaker friends, more old world style winemaker friends that are focused on flavor over yield, and they pay a lot of attention to their cooperages, and
Super important.
And winemaker friend was at our house, Steve Mathiasen Vineyards, and said, what kind of barrels do you guys use? And I said, well, we don't use anything fancy like you guys. This is years ago. And I said, our cooperages in the whiskey business don't produce barrels like you guys have. And he said, well, what are they? And I said, well, they're kiln dried. And he said, well, what about air seasoned? I only use air seasoned, and I won't touch a barrel that's not been at least 3 years of air seasoning. And I'm like,
that's very important. The conditioning. They definitely like conditioning and the wood. So I was at the Jack Daniel's distillery, and we went to the cooperage. It was insane seeing that insane field, like immense field of
staves,
staves and
stave
stuff.
stock, right?
And they do that sometimes for 6 years.
Oh yeah, right. Well, the
usually
more it sits out in that rain,
Yeah.
it's not just the air; it's that rain and just breaking down those tannins and breaking down the lignans in the wood and really just letting it naturally cure out.
Yeah.
And we moved to air seasoned barrels several years ago. So everything here has been in air seasoned barrels.
Perfect.
And that's as of like 2019.
Okay.
And so it's been a slow evolution. It's been interesting to kind of watch, and then where we age, of course, is we're on the
warehouse
coast.
is
Yeah, and how we don't put them on pallets and stack them real tight. They're on actual ricks, so they've got a lot of airflow around them.
nice.
Things of that nature.
Let's roll into the double oak now. I'm a big double oak fan. So you know how everybody talks toasted barrel, and nobody uses the term double oak, except Woodford Reserve, which was the official first double or toasted barrel in reality. I'm trying to get you drunk.
Right.
So we have the double oak. Why did I say double instead of double?
No, double oak.
Double.
Yes.
So basically here we have the same juice exactly. It starts with the same juice, same aging process, and then you do 1 year or a little bit more in a char 1 barrel, right?
That's it. Yeah. So virgin, new oak, both.
Oof.
So new oak on char 3.5 for several years, and then we moved to a char 1 for an additional. I think these are like 14 months minimum, and then they've gone as long as 18 months. It has a lot to do with the season, because if we put them in say May, they're gonna get that whole summer.
Yeah.
And then they'll get the winter, and then they're gonna get another whole summer. That's a lot.
Which we can go in a big rabbit hole about expansion and contraction and all sorts of.
Right.
I like geeking out. I'm
So-
sorry that we can't, but
It matters when you put them in, when it goes in the barrel. It's not it's 12 months no
Yeah.
matter what. It's like, well, which 12 months kind of cycle are we talking about?
man, this is that extra year on that char 1 barrel. It's like I can smell a lot. Like it's like a lot more like caramels at the same time, but you get that. I don't want to say young because it's not young. You're talking about that fresh wood that is like. How can I say it? I'm trying to find the right word, because that wood smell, right? Because you don't have that. The extra charred, you get those caramels, sugars, the spice, But whenever you have that char one, you get more of those wood elements of vanilla. Well, vanilla a little bit. But I love.
Yeah.
It's just another layer.
I agree. Well, it's definitely more depth and a little richer.
Yeah, and it comes a little bit hotter, right?
It really plays well with
Yeah, it's a
Jimmy Red.
107.
Yeah, 107.
And there again, it's not. I think some people, or at least I was of the idea that double oak would mean it was oaky.
Yes,
And I'm thinking, to me, tannic. And it's like, well, it's not that.
exactly. Yeah.
It's and those char one barrels were what I didn't realize is that the cooper said, look, actually char one will give you more color than a char 3 barrel will.
That's crazy, right?
It's crazy. It's the reverse of what you would think. And so we had heard about Woodford. This sort of came about like a lot of our experiments. It wasn't super intentional. It was, well, we've got this Jimmy Red out of a new barrel. We were making peach brandy. We make a brandy out of South Carolina peaches. And we thought our yield was going to be 5 barrels. And we said, this year, let's put them in char 1 barrels. We just change up cooperage for the peach brandy. And this year I said, well, let's put it in char 1 barrels. And we ordered up 5 and we only yielded 4. So I was like, well, what are we going to do with this char 1 barrel? And I was like, well, you know what? I don't want to put new bourbon in this. Let's take some of that and try this double oak thing out and put it in that. And
Genius.
then about 18 months later, our team came to us and were like, have you tasted that? And I'm like, is it bad?
You were like, still like, is it bad?
Yeah.
Should I be concerned?
Right. And then, and then we tasted it and it was like, whoa. And then we bought, I think this was a result of 10 barrels.
Yeah.
This is a 10 barrel batch. And then we are on batch 2 in South Carolina. This is batch 1, technically 1.5, batch 1.5. But batch 2 in South Carolina, which was a result of 15 barrels. And now we've been peppering in 15 barrels every purchase of barrels since then.
That's so cool. And this is batch number 1. I feel so honored that I'm having to taste. I'm tasting batch number 1 of the double oak. And I can't wait anymore. Can we taste that?
Oh, yeah.
Can we?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I've already tasted.
Oh, cheater. Cheater. Oh, yeah, no. No, that's phenomenal.
Thank you. Yeah.
I love it still carries that same spice, which still can be about 100%. I'm gonna have to go inspect it. That's 100% corn, and you don't expect that.
Right.
I think that there's a good play of brininess in this, like a little salted caramel almost.
Yes.
So our rick house is less than 500 feet from salt water. So we're pulling all that beautiful soft
course.
air across the barrels, and we do get a fair amount of brininess from time to time.
It's just, I hadn't tried, like I was saying earlier, at some point, whiskey social and stuff like that, I know I tried probably, but you're tasting so much things.
Oh, yeah.
And you're like, your palate is already super shocked. You don't know. And this is a very honest review for me, because like, if you tell me what are the notes of Jimmy Red, like, well, I know I tasted it, but it was not the right. Now this is a different experience, because this is my first whiskey of the day, and I'm in a clean.
Yep.
And I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
Everybody stop, because this is beautiful, gorgeous.
And what we hear over and over, we'll see people blind taste, and they'll get to ours, and we'll know, you can see what they're tasting, but they won't know what they're tasting on, say, YouTube or whatever. And you'll see them stop, and sort of, you can see the question marks coming out of their head, and it's like,
What's happening?
What is, and I'm thinking, first time I saw that, I'm like, is it bad? And then like,
you cannot interpret you're like, the confusion slash I love it.
Right. And they're like, whoa, this is so different. And it's like, that's the whole point, right?
But the mouthfeel is phenomenal. I love of course, the proof. I love it.
Yeah.
And the spice is a big component. If you have your you know how they do the circle that has the spikes where the things go?
Oh yeah.
So you can have I see it as a very balanced, not like a spiky kind of thing. You can see probably like a little, very balanced
Right.
graph.
Right. Yeah.
I like that a lot.
Yeah, we did 107 on this because we sort of wanted a historic proof. You know, that's back in the day, the max, I think it was until the 80s, you could only proof up to 110 on the entry. And way back in the day, most distillers went in the barrel at 100 proof entry. So it came out at around 107. That was kind of
Standard
cast street. Yeah. And it stuck. But we like you said earlier, we don't have anything lower than 95 proof. It just especially if you're going to make a cocktail with it.
See, that's my big thing. For example, you're not in the business of making stuff to be like a bartender. I mean, you can if you're. I'm not saying that you shouldn't use what you like for making your cocktails, but an 80 proof is gonna satisfy the need for the bar speed, whiskey and coke, stuff like that. I don't think it would stand. You can make cocktails where it's part of the cocktail, but you're using other things. It's important whenever you're making cocktails to know your proof.
Right.
And for example, for me, it's a no-no when people make old fashions with 80 proof spirits. You do you, boo. But I don't think you don't get what unless you just build it in the glass and throw the ice and then drink it. If not, you don't stir, you don't nothing.
Right. Yeah, it dilutes. I mean, we have a bar at our tasting room, and the old fashioned is the #1 cocktail we make. And people say, "You're old fashioned." We get a lot of, probably 80% of our visitors are from out of town, first time visitors, destination. Charleston's very, tourist driven. And they will say, "Your old fashioned is one of the best I've ever had." And I'm like, well, it does matter the base spirit, because it's a spirit forward cocktail, and because of that, I do think, having a nice proof on a bourbon for an old fashioned is important.
90 to 95% of your drink.
Right.
Exactly.
So I do think, if I'm drinking an old fashioned and I'm at a bar, I'm going to be looking for something. I'm not going to order a drop of, on some legacy brand that's, overhyped or whatever. I'm going to get a really solid bourbon. I'm probably not going to want the well, I'm going to want to go up
because
here.
It's going to be either a benchmark, which is nothing around, like it's an 80 proof.
Sure.
Jack Daniel's, Four Roses,
right.
Which they have great expressions, of course, but they're going to be the standard 80 proof.
Right. And to me, we don't produce a, there again, we can't compete because we don't have the volume production where we can compete with an 80 proof trying to get in a well. It just isn't.
There's a lot in the business that goes into that. Right. That we're not gonna get into that right now, but it's a complicated business. Let's call it like that.
Yeah.
I think since you were mentioning old fashioned, I kind of want to make a cocktail for you guys.
Awesome.
I think I want to make something with a bottle and bond for you.
Yeah.
Great.
Sounds good?
Yeah, I like it.
We're back with you guys. Today, I've been with my friends from High Wire Distilling, but I'm going to make a cocktail for them. We're going to start with a couple of dashes of Aztec chocolate bitters, a couple of dashes of Dale de Grove's pimento bitters, 1 bar spoon of Demerara syrup. We're going to use the beautiful Southern Amaro from High Wire Distilling. We're gonna do 0.25 ounces of their Amaro. And we're gonna use a beautiful bottled in bond Jimmy Red. We're gonna do 1.75 ounces of that. H2O croutons, always all the way to the top. Stirry. And we're gonna strain it on our martini glasses. I gotta be very careful because I don't want them to fight over who got more and who got less. I made 1 serving to share, but feel free to double it. Here you go, guys.
Thank you.
Actually, I should be making one for myself too, but
Right.
I want to see what they think because this was way on the go, just like that.
It's delicious.
It's delicious. Yeah.
Yeah, passes.
I like the pimento bitters.
Yeah. That's a nice touch.
Del de Grop.
Of course, the man.
The man, the myth, the legend.
This is delicious. I like that combo.
Hell yeah.
Jimmy Red base.
The chocolate. Yeah. No, it's nice.
Beautiful.
It doesn't overwhelm the whiskey, which is important.
Yeah.
I like
You
that.
gotta be very careful with the. Yeah. Well, thank you guys for joining us and thank you guys for coming to hang out with this crazy person.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Thank you.
See you later, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers.